we got through the intro without technical issues.
This is our reparations for summer only starting in June.
Oh yeah. Although, like, now that it's summer, I'm like, ugh, gross. And why? You know what? I'm that person. I'm always that person in the summer.
I'm also that person.
I hate the heat.
I hate everything.
Oh, well, then, yeah, summer, winter. Is there any season you like apathetic about?
I really like we talked about this in our first episode. I really like the 2 weeks every year that we get of fall.
Oh, yeah, I like fall, too.
Yeah, because then it's like not awful. It's really cute. You get to wear sweaters, and then you die.
And then you die?
Because you freeze.
Oh, right, in the winter. That's what happens. That's what ends up happening.
But speaking of freezing, this week, hell froze over.
Yes.
Because all sorts of awful things happen.
Oh, yeah. Like, oh. Hell also froze over because we did not at all advertise this episode. We were like, you know what? Like, fuck it. We're just gonna
do this on Sunday and see who figures out if they're gonna show up.
So we're all just gonna share this right now.
Yeah.
Our official TacoBagel share.
Our social media team here.
And live. Yeah, so I'm like really excited about today's episode because there's like a ton of things that I'm ready to like discuss with everyone and anyone.
Oh God, same.
It just like a plethora of things have been happening in the last like couple of weeks. Really exciting things that I've been wanting to like vent about, and I know that you've done your research on some of these.
Oh yeah, I have on this laptop the entire Starbucks training that they did. I went to their website and I did actually look through like all 108 pages of this training. I didn't watch the videos.
You actually went through the training. I went
through the training. I just like flipped through the training notebook.
You are a certified Starbucks trainee
partner now. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I'm in a queer platonic relationship with corporate diversity.
Wow.
Yeah.
They should have just hired us, honestly.
I mean, we probably would have done better than a stock video recording of Common and whoever else the fuck they had.
Oh my gosh, Common is so extra.
Common was in like 10 of these videos.
Oh wow.
Like literally Common.
Wow, he is really committed to
There's going to be Common in another one.
Whatever this is. All right.
Yeah, Common showed up what's he doing?
He's a producer. Like, he makes music, he raps. Like, he actually, I actually really fuck with Common. I really like his music.
Right, but like, why does he have time for this?
That's my next question. He must have gotten a hefty Starbucks check.
Does he get like free coffee there from like for the rest of his life or something?
Maybe. I mean, if you're Common, I assume you will walk into any Starbucks anyway. People will be like, oh my god.
Does he get like a little thing that he can give to his assistant?
I don't know. I don't know. We can contact Common if you're interested in going on the show live. Like, just let us know.
Common, if you're watching, we would love to have you and ask you about your experience at Starbucks.
Yeah. But yeah. So tell us a little bit about what happened this week with Starbucks, because the diversity training was enacted this week. Yeah.
So Starbucks, if we all remember, Starbucks is racist. And what was that, like a month ago they had? Like about a month or so ago, they there was this store in Philadelphia, right? Mm-hmm. The Philadelphia area, that arrested 2 black men for sitting in a store without buying anything for like 2 minutes, because
racism. If you looked at the timeline of the time that the black man sat down to just wait on their third acquaintance, which was a white man. They hadn't gotten there yet, and the timeline for that was that they sat down, and then the Starbucks employee basically said, like, "Hey, are you guys gonna buy anything?"
And they were like, "We're waiting for our friend."
Yeah, and they said, "We're waiting for our friend," and then 2 minutes later,
they
called the cop. Yeah, the cop.
Like that's it. We're calling the police.
Yeah, so it was like very quick, and by the time their third friend showed up, they were already in the middle of getting arrested. So the third person who showed up was a white man, and he was just like, "What's going on here?" They always are. Yeah, he was like, "What's going on here?" But if you haven't seen the video, like, it's online everywhere. Yeah. People were outraged. Yeah, well, they were outraged because it was very clear that, like, anyone that ever goes to Starbucks, there's plenty of people that just go there and sit and work. Right.
I many times have gone into a Starbucks and decided to not buy their overpriced shit.
Yeah.
And instead sat there because I was 2 hours early for a meeting.
To be honest, I've even brought coffee from other places and sat down in Starbucks.
Right. We together have sat in a Starbucks many times and not bought anything and did work instead.
Yeah. So this was definitely one of those cases where there was not only racial profiling, but really obvious, blatant racial profiling, which, a lot of people will have the opportunity to poke holes in and et cetera, but like this was very cut and dry.
It was a whole mess. But so to attempt to make up for it, Starbucks closed all their stores nationwide for a 6-hour diversity training for every single one of their like baristas. I don't know if their executives got this too. I don't know what the deal was, but they closed all of their stores for 6 hours a few days ago to do this training. The entire training, by the way, if you want to look through this thing, is available online for free at starbuckschannel.com/the third place, which sounds like an NBC show that gets canceled after one season.
But they all do. They
all do. But if you go to this website, the first thing you will see is this horrible stock photo. Like they have, like it's a one of everything diversity stock photo. Like look at this.
Oh wow. Oh look, they got a Muslim.
They have a Muslim woman in hijab.
They've got someone that's seemingly Asian. They've got a
possibly
black
queer.
woman.
They got a black woman in the back. They have 2 white women, a racially ambiguous person who's behind the back half of a white man's head, and then they have a white man with a small gauge because he works at Starbucks. And he's a hip and with it youth.
I am dead because you know what?
Yeah, this is like it goes downhill from here. I promise.
Can people see it? Can they actually see it on?
Yeah. This is the photo. This is the photo.
Wow.
It's actually like this is a one of everything diversity photo, and it goes downhill from there. So the whole thing is called The Third Place, Our Commitment Renewed. And blah, blah, blah. They explained that they closed their stores so they could come together for a conversation and learning session on racial bias. Now, some reports that came out of the session were really interesting. There were a couple of baristas of color who were interviewed, I think one non-black person and one black person. And basically they said like it was really, really awkward. They didn't actually talk about the incident at all. They didn't talk about like why the people got arrested. They just had a history lesson on race in America, which is like neat, but also not exactly what you're looking for from a racial bias training after like an international incident.
Yeah. Also, like, I mean, the context of the way that this like incident happened is very specific, right? It's it's not like I don't believe that the barista who went up to these 2 black people didn't know a history on like civil rights. What I believe is like the issue is that acknowledging your what seems to be inherent racism, right, and internal bias, and understanding how like your actions therefore have like consequences, right? So how police and black communities have these very like tense relationships because of like violence that police have inflicted on black communities, right? So,
and is exacerbated by like white people who run businesses,
right? Yeah. And by the fact that white people have learned to use the police as like a
weapon,
tool, weaponizing that. So like those conversations are the really uncomfortable ones that I assume needed to be had.
And it does not sound like they were had. It sounds like this was in essence like an African American studies course,
right?
And it was complete with a custom documentary commissioned by Starbucks from Stanley Nelson. It was like it was like the 6th or 7th video that they showed. The entire training is online at this website, starbuckschannel.com/the third place. Common is in like 6 of these videos. I don't know why he had time to do this.
So some people are commenting. Oh
God.
Let's see.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Janara said this is typical diversity where there's still more white people, but each of the non-white persons are still missing ethnicity.
Right. Yeah. And I think she's talking about the diversity photo.
Right. The diversity photo. Guillermo said this reminds me of the fact that Cafe
Paradise. That's a cafe downstate.
Posted an ad saying in May 20-something. A national cafe closing for sensitivity training. that would be a great day to come to Cafe Paradis.
Oh no!
To enjoy a discrimination-free coffee and pastry.
That's ugly.
That is really ugly.
Oh no! Nothing like marketing off of racism to really build your customer base, right?
And what I'm guessing, Cafe Paradiso, is this a Latino base?
No, it's like you never went to Cafe Paradiso when you were in Champaign? It was like that like white hipster cafe.
Oh hell no!
on Illinois, behind all the dorms that like all the humanities professors would hold office hours at.
Okay, I did not. Yeah, I don't know if I have or haven't, but clearly.
It was like off of Nevada Street. It was like at Nevada and Illinois.
Yeah, I have no idea. I didn't go to hipster cafes like that.
Or not. It was Nevada and Lincoln. Sorry.
Get real specific to like point out.
I'm clocking this cafe. This is garbage.
Yeah. That's really ugly.
Their prices are too high too.
Yeah, I assumingly like if you hire any person into any cafe setting, they have the capability of being
like yikes.
Yeah, being racist. And Melly wants to talk about Roseanne, but we will get to Roseanne.
I promise we will get to Roseanne.
We will definitely get there. But
wait, here's this Stanley Nelson documentary about the story of access to public spaces in America. They commissioned a custom documentary that is 8 minutes long for this training.
So you watched it, right?
I watched some of these videos. I didn't actually watch this one because I saw it and I kind of fell over laughing. Like some background to this is it started off worse than this because originally Starbucks was going to bring in the Anti-Defamation League, otherwise known as the ADL, to do part of this training. They were going to be like one of the training partners in this, and the ADL is garbage. It's this it's one of the oldest Jewish organizations in the United States. It was founded to like deal with anti-Jewish bias and like deal with anti-Semitism in the United States, and since has become like a civil rights watchdog for the left. It's garbage. The Anti-Defamation League is like a horrifically Zionist, incredibly racist, super Islamophobic trash heap of an organization. In the 1980s and the 1990s, they spied on literally every leftist organization in the United States, including the NAACP, the descendants of Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez's United Farm Workers, ACT UP, Queer Nation, every anti-apartheid organization that was working against South Africa. They found information on all these organizations, and they passed it to the Nazi sympathizing government of apartheid South Africa. Like they committed felony espionage.
So, and I remember
and they were a partner in this training.
And people were getting really upset about this. So they ended up switching, right?
Starbucks actually took them out of the training. I don't know what their actual role was, but they were going to be one of the presenters. And Starbucks like either demoted them or took them out of that role.
Okay.
And there were a lot of Jewish and Palestinian activists who saw that and were like, wait, we can criticize the ADL and not get called anti-Semites. So there was like this huge online backlash campaign. And like 2 days later, Starbucks decided that they were going to drop the ADL. Which was really good because the ADL is garbage and needs to be dropped from a lot of things.
Right.
But this is what they wound up with instead. And the ADL would have made this worse. But this is like they took a turd and they like cut the worst part of the turd off and then they polished the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's a very shiny turd. And they put a diversity stock photo on the beginning of it. Yeah. It's like they had this journal in here. They had a 68-page guidebook for this training. Now, and I don't know how many of you have done diversity trainings before. This is like a 4 to 6 hour diversity training, and the trainer's manual was 68 pages. That's short.
Well, I mean, in general, I feel like it was too long. It was too short. Yeah. It was too short for any substantial change, but it was too long to cram into someone's workday and try to make them process that kind of information all at once.
They also had a 40-page journal, like literally a notebook, where they asked every employee to go throughout the training and fill out these questions with like page-specific prompts, and things that are just like the most awkward questions that you can tell that these questions were written with like making white employees think about things for the first time in mind. And with somebody who completely forgot that like black and brown people work for Starbucks.
Describe the.
This is like it's
what?
It's ugly.
Oh my goodness! Wow! Hold on.
My laptop's being.
We're gonna read some of these hilarious questions off as soon as I.
Hold on. Let me get this into actual thing mode.
So one of the things that, like, you know, we talked about even before we looked at the actual material is, like, what really is the purpose of, like, having diversity trainings, like, nationally, right?
Like, what's the utility of this in the first place? Like, what's Starbucks going to do?
Right, and who are they targeting these trainings for? And I think, you know, Steph just touched on one of those points, that there are hundreds, if not 100,000, there's got to be thousands of, like, black employees who already like are fully functionally aware of how racism exists.
Like folks who do not need this training.
Right.
And who have to come to it anyway.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways in which racism manifests, right? So it's like, you know, obviously anti-blackness still exists in non-black communities of color, but also, like, how do you discuss Islamophobia? Like, how do you? There's just so many just different facets.
Which I do not believe they addressed in the training, despite having a Muslim woman in hijab in the diversity stock photo.
I did not. I had no. In my opinion, I didn't think that this was actually going to end up being something that they were able to address. I thought maybe they're going to try to talk about racism within black communities.
They completely avoided the actual reason why the training was happening too, which I think is, like, just heinous.
Yeah, they didn't even bring up the incident. Yeah. Like, talk about the settlement. You know.
The majority of management at Starbucks is white, and partners are POC or black. That sounds consistent with racially biased hiring practices.
Yeah. I definitely, you know,
so, like, this is one of the things that they ask, like, right at the beginning. In your life, where do you feel a sense of belonging? They describe belonging as, feeling welcome, feeling included, and feeling like yourself. And then on the next page, they ask, describe the place. Why does it make you feel like you belong? And then how can you create that feeling with every person that visits your store? And I really, really, really hope that some snarky person who just did not want to sit through this bullshit just wrote, don't arrest them.
Oh my God.
Question.
You know, I mean, like, and if I'm reviewing this, right, like, I'm thinking about the honest answers that I have for this. My honest answer is I feel most comfortable when I'm around non-white people. And it's like, how do I recreate that feeling in a predominantly white world? Or I feel most comfortable, like, around queer spaces. How do I recreate that feeling in a predominantly hetero society? Like, and I think that that places the responsibility, misplaces the responsibility in some sense on marginalized people to accommodate a world that's already unaccommodatable. Right. So it's, like, very, to me it sounds really condescending. Like,
it's extremely condescending. They use this term in the training that we thought was, like, made up for the training, but apparently, according to TacoBagel theme maker Donnie, is not actually made up by Starbucks for this training, which makes me feel a little bit better about it, but not much. This term color brave, which really, they use this as, like, a stand-in for, like, not being racist. Not being racist in, like, Starbucks language is color brave. And apparently this term is several years old. It was, like, coined by an African-American woman. Like, don't be colorblind, be color brave. There's a TED Talk on it. But this is the term that they use throughout this training to describe not being racist pieces of shit and arresting black people for sitting in your stores.
You can't co-opt a term that was already established by
and not even like a widely used term. Like, somebody dug through the internet and was like, what's the thing that we can use to say don't be racist but sound the nicest way possible about it?
Be color brave.
Be color brave.
Doesn't make me feel really uncomfortable, because it's like this idea or this notion of bravery being attached to, like, interacting with, like, people of color.
Right, like, it's not brave for a white person to not call the police when they see a black person.
Yeah.
It's called being a decent fucking human.
And, like, obviously that takes a different, like, context when you're talking as, like, a black person or talking as a brown person within that, like, environment. But when you're having, like, a white person almost, like, hijack that term and apply it to their own experiences, that's really strange.
Oh, it's creepy. What
other questions?
This whole thing is so wild. They're like defining unconscious bias.
But, you know, and this is the question, like, I want to pose, right? Because we're taking a lot of time to, like, pick apart and dissect through, like, what's wrong with this training.
Right, like, we're both professional trainers just, like, shitting on this professionally done training that's, like, and Donnie just put the TED Talk in the comments.
Yeah, and we'll repost it later if you guys want to check it out.
We'll post the Color Brave TED Talk.
So I guess
the defining stereotype. I'm gonna put this away before I get mad.
One of the things I want to pose, and I obviously to everyone watching and to you as well, like what would have been a more effective way of like addressing this issue? And I think outside, even beyond Starbucks, like what are some of the ways in which we can start having these conversations? Because I think there are a lot of people like that Starbucks barista that would just, you know, call the cops on something that makes them uncomfortable. And this is why, for me, it's so important to like preach like anti-police and abolition like rhetoric, right? It's because at the root of it, it's like those little actions, like not calling the police on someone, can make like a vast difference.
It's, you know, often the case, the difference between life and death. Yeah. And I mean, I guess so. In regards to that question, I love that you're drinking Dunkin' Donuts coffee while we're shitting on the Starbucks. But like,
it's cheap, so much more affordable.
Dunkin' Donuts, it's cheap.
It's cheap. That should actually be their slogan.
We're looking for sponsorships. Dunkin' Donuts, if you would like to sponsor us and give us free stuff, we will drink your coffee where the logo doesn't show on screen.
And we know you get rid of your donuts every night anyway.
Oh yeah, we will eat those stale donuts.
Yeah, we're, you know, eco-friendly. Like
we're gay.
We're
gay and we'll eat donuts.
Make me blow my coffee.
So here's the thing: is there's two ways to approach this question though. Really, is there's what do we think would be most effective, and what do we think Starbucks was actually likely to do,
or capable,
or capable of doing. Considering like this is Starbucks, like they brand themselves as like whatever the fuck progressive or some shit, and Howard Schultz is a piece of shit. But like, and the whole company is kind of like a weird piece of shit.
But to be honest, like I was a little surprised when they came up with the video and like the CEO was talking about like white privilege and stuff. Right. And I was like, I didn't know the CEO had it in him like that. Like,
well, they're like the Bernie Sanders of companies.
Okay.
It's like, and that's their branding, is like, we're the Bernie Sanders of companies. We're your slightly less racist uncle who wants to run for president because he's better than the other white people that you know.
But also so ironic considering that like Starbucks overcharges.
Right, and like is based out of Seattle and like contributes to gentrification. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the best way to go about this would have been teaching about the history of police and policing. Like, I think, and tying that in to teaching about racial bias. And like, because there has to be some element of like awkwardly 101 racial bias training if you're going to be training all the employees. Like it sucks and it's weird and it's very awkward for like the people who don't need it. But like every single white person who works at Starbucks, like most of them probably need that training or haven't had it before. And so there need to be aspects of that, but there also needs to be like, you can't really teach about what's wrong with calling the police on Black people if you don't teach about the history of policing. Yeah. Because you're just saying like, this is a bad thing to do, this is racist, but you don't explore the history behind the racism.
Yeah.
And that's such an important part of tying the implications of the action to the action itself.
Right. And I think that's the hurdle right now, is because especially like predominantly in society, we still, and I'm saying we as not we.
The royal we.
Yeah, the royal we. People still
see. Royal wedding.
Anyways, people still see, you know, the police as kind of this like protecting force, right? And like if you look at the history of policing, and we've talked a little bit about we talked a little bit about this on TacoBagel before, it's that the original template for policing was constructed as like slave patrol, right? And as a way to keep people of color, indigenous and Black people like intact and enslaved, and
specifically in the US,
right. And then after the emancipation happened, there was this shift from like slavery to the prison industrial system, which we have now. And so like that is something that needs to be discussed, right? Whether or not like you believe that is the existing purpose of the current state of police, the history is still rooted in something extremely anti-Black.
It's unavoidable.
Yeah, and very racist. And so like you said, like with very mainstream white kind of like, and I have no doubt that there's got to be like police connections in some way, shape, or form to any kind of corporate entity, right? How do you start having that conversation? And like, I almost feel like that's an even better reason to hire outside kind of like radical leftist like organizations to come in and do your training, because you don't want to be the fucking bad guy and tell people the truth about how this country exists and works, and like at least have somebody else do the honor of like making that happen. And
I also really wonder there's something fishy about their transparency with this too, which is like, I understand that Starbucks like by announcing that they're doing this diversity training, had to put the training online. Because everybody was going to ask, well, what the fuck is in this training?
Right.
But, you know, there's things that they could have done. There's, like, stuff that they could have put in the training that was important material. And honestly, like, the other thing is there's Starbucks. Like, what are people going to do? Not drink Starbucks coffee? Like, not go to Starbucks anymore? Like, half the people who would have boycotted Starbucks anyway are white people who couldn't sustain a boycott for more than, like, 3 days. Like, all these, like, angry white suburban housewives who'd be like, well, I'm going to boycott Starbucks because they don't spell my name right and because they criticize the police and policing in America. They wouldn't have been able to keep that boycott up for, like, more than 3 days.
Yeah. And, I mean, honestly, I don't genuinely believe that boycotts or... A lot of people get upset about things very quickly, and once the hype dies out, people kind of forget. Boycotts require
a campaign behind them.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll bring Kanye West into this. A week ago, everybody, I mean, just a couple of days ago, his, like, new album came out, and people switched up really fast. It went from everybody was, like, so, like, I can't believe Kanye supports Donald Trump. I can't believe he's saying this. I'm never listening to his music again. I looked at my timeline a couple days ago.
Everybody's really into Scoop.
Yeah, everyone's rating it like, oh, this is my favorite song. Like, fuck you, Kanye, but I'm still listening to this. And I'm like, what? Like, you have nothing.
Be white women who are mad at Starbucks and actually boycott the thing.
Yeah, like, it's like, I feel like everyone gets so outraged. They're very reactionary in terms of their anger. But when it comes to, like, giving your money to something, that's really all that matters.
Consumer habits are really hard to change.
Yes.
That's another thing. Is like, yeah, Starbucks could have done better and not lost profit. And, like, one, fuck profit. But also, like, you know, they're a company, they're profit-minded. They know that they could have done better than this without really affecting their bottom line in a real way. And yet, like, I mean, they don't sell donuts. Like, cops aren't going to shop there. But, I mean, they do sell donuts, but they're not, like, whatever. But, like, you know, they could have done better than this. And I'm sure that they think that this is the best that they could have done. But I don't think anybody would have objected if they took a little bit more time in between the incident and when they put on the training to, like, really do some, like, did they ask the people who got arrested who they would prefer to have do the training? Like, did they have any opinions on that?
You know, the people that got arrested ended up settling out.
Right, they had that, like, donation thing.
Yeah, they had a lot of there were people that were very, like, upset about it because they got some money, not a lot of money. Right. They got some money, but then they ended up getting a ton of money to start this Kickstarter for young entrepreneurs or whatever. But it wasn't even, like, black and brown based or something like that. It wasn't black youth or anything. It was just, like, a general. And it's just, like, there's a little bit of, like, good and bad in that. Like, they use their money for something good.
Right.
And it is what it is. But also, I don't feel like those people, it's not like they only had to answer to those people, right? Like,
and it's also not those people's job.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I feel like if they wanted to say, they could have had a say. Or like, if they wanted to say, they should have had a say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they were just kind of ready to, like, let this incident go, leave this incident behind.
And I'm sure that they just wanted to, like, get the fuck away from it.
My big thing, and this is what I'm going to propose. Mm-hmm. I think I don't agree with the model that they had set up, which is like, this is all we're going to teach you in this 1 day time period. Nobody has ever unlearned racism in 4 hours. Yeah, in 4 hours, 10 hours, you know, that's like an extended process. What I would have challenged Starbucks to do is reached out to multiple different entities and corporations.
Right. And done their research and made sure they were good organizations too.
Or organizations, and not just the ones they're working with, organizations that are also having problems with systemic bias and racism, and established a network, a long-term network for, like, ways that, like, different corporate entities, right, that deal with different types of customers.
Are we suggesting corporate coalition building?
Because, you know, at the end of the day, if you're already going to do something half-assed, that to me seems like more like a PR stunt, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you may as well go in, right? Like, you may as well go all fucking in if you have all the money in the world, all the resources. You could get all kinds of training. And, the problem isn't, at the root of it, isn't just racist cafes and corporate entities. It's, like, this inherent and then systemic bias that we've been ingrained to, like, be conditioned to, right? So it's like, if you have the resources, why not use that to develop something bigger, and more thorough, and you know, like, is
there a follow-up to this?
Yeah, like, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. What happens after this day?
And some of this shit is like, I'm like, All right, so I'm looking at part of this. It's reflect the first time you recall you experienced your racial identity. It may have been when you were a child. It may have been last week. And then it asks people to answer when they first noticed their racial identity, how their race affected their beauty standards, how they felt their accent impacted people's perception of their intelligence or competence, how they alter their communication styles to avoid playing into stereotypes. Like, this is the sort of stuff that you like get in your intro to college diversity seminar. But there's like, and you know, I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad, like people need that information, but there's gotta be more. Yeah. Especially because in their response to every single criticism, their answer was always, this is a step, this is not a solution. If this is a step, that implies there's more steps.
Right.
I want to know what the fuck those other steps are. Where are the other steps?
It's like a one-step staircase. And they're like, well.
This isn't a 12-step program. This is a one-step program. And then we're going to re-elect Obama and racism will be over.
Yeah. You know, and that's the problem, too, is like right now, obviously, I think Trump's administration has like
lowered the bar.
Fanned the fire, right?
Fanned the fire and lowered the bar.
And lowered the bar, fanned the fire. And so people are like, oh my God. But like, you know, this barista could have been working there since the Obama administration. Right. You know, we don't know.
When racism was over.
Right. So it's like, it doesn't really matter, you know, at what point this like incident occurred, because racism has always existed and will in some ways always exist. So
like we aren't at the revolution yet. Like this is going to stick around a minute.
And so when you're talking about these issues as though they're like secular to like what's happening now, right? I think that's like a big problem that we're having in this country. It's like our nostalgia, right? Is always like, and first we had like Bush nostalgia, and now we're having Obama nostalgia, and like there's definitely like this ongoing kind of like anything better than what's happening in Trump's administration. Right. But I don't know. I think like you said, like there needs to be a follow-up. There needs to be, beyond that, more discussion among people about how to, like, address those things outside of Starbucks, outside of diversity training. Because, you know, like, people don't fucking wake up knowing what their inherent racism is.
Right. And they certainly aren't going to learn how to unlearn their biases in, like, a 4-hour training that talks about, like, what stereotypes are.
Yeah. And also, it's like, you know, we've been in, like, organizing communities for so long, and it's like...
We're also, like, bitter as fuck about this.
Yeah. We are very jaded. But also, like, we've been in these spaces for so long, and, like, every single day, like, Steph will clock me on something that, like, I'm not right about, or I'll tell her, like, I think you're not looking at this the right way. And so it's like, when you're with someone that you trust, to, like, be honest and have your best interest in heart, then it becomes like an easier process of learning. Absolutely. Right? And as like a cis person, like I'm predominantly organizing with trans people right now, and it's like I'm always fucking up, like all the time.
You're also always getting asked if you're trans.
Right. Well, yeah, that. Yeah, you know, and it's like, and at this point, it's kind of like, all right, like now I'm like, I know when something is off, and I can tell other cis people. I'm like, actually, no, like this is a red flag. This is not right, and it's constantly a learning process. So that multiple step process that Starbucks was talking about, that's just life.
Right. And I feel like Starbucks is giving themselves some cookies for this. I know there's gonna be no fucking problem. Like there's gonna be no follow up on this. Like whatever Starbucks does next, they're gonna do very quietly. Like they've made their splash. They made a whole big deal about it. They brought in Common to like read shit in their diversity training. I don't know. I'm interested. Like, one, I don't care really. We're talking about this because we're annoyed about it. But like, I want to see if they do. I don't care if they do anything else. I think they should. But I want to see what they do if they do something, and I want to see if they actually commit to doing something as an entity that has power in the United States, or if they're gonna like leave this at diversity training. Right.
Yeah, I'm interested, and maybe we'll check back in on this too.
If they do something else, we'll talk about it.
Because I'm interested. I think someone made a really good point. Bambi made a good point about surrounding yourself with an echo chamber, and I think that is absolutely valid because, like I said, like we are in organizing communities, we're
in the most echoey of echo chambers,
right? And it's for us. It's like when you're unlearning and you're around a lot of like diversity and like people who have all kinds of narratives. Like it's so easy to be like, oh wow, like this is how different they are for me. This is how much I respect them as a human being. But when you don't have that, like how do you reach out to those people and how do you have those conversations with people? You know, like
how do you like bridge divides across difference?
Yeah, and I went somewhere recently, to a different state, a suburb of a different state.
A different state.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna class this state because there's like racism everywhere and there's like transphobia everywhere. But like it was really interesting because I was talking to someone and they said something really fucked up. They said a couple really fucked up things. We were in a conversation. And they were asked my partner, they're like, oh, you went to this college. Were there a lot of really crazy rich Asians? And
they said what?
And it literally, the second he said that, it was really interesting because everyone in the room turned to me. Everyone looked at me because I always have to be that person. And I kind of like just blinked a bunch of times. And this dude knew he had fucked up because he turned to me and he was like, wait, are you Asian? And I'm like, does it matter? The fact that you hesitated and you like had that reaction. And, like, you even thought to, like, step back, right? Like, does that even matter? And it's like, people, and he said to me, he's like, well, I'm not racist, right?
Oh, no.
I'm not racist. But this is the thing, it's like, people don't, like, they say these things, and, like, they know there's something off about them, but they still can't acknowledge that racism. And there were a number of other things this person said, and, like, it just, like, got to a point where I was like, how do you reach out to people who, this is a very standard, like, Midwest, like, he's a football player, he lives in a bubble, like he exists in this world that like isn't really catered to having these discussions, right? So like, how do
he lives in like
Is this where Starbucks comes in?
Yeah, he needs to go to the Starbucks diversity training to learn how to not ask if people went to school with crazy rich Asians.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe we should just send him the link and
we should have him work at Starbucks during the diversity training. He can like be their runner.
This is.
Speaking of people who say whack things, though.
Oh my God.
We want to transition to
Roseanne.
And
I know
Roseanne
some people have been waiting for the Roseanne conversation.
Oh yes.
You being one of them.
Oh God, Roseanne is a trip. This. You want
to do a timeline of Roseanne's history?
I'll preface this by saying I did not give a shit about Roseanne or her stupid TV show until people started making an issue out of it in the last couple years. I knew that she existed. I knew that her show existed. I knew that people liked it. And I knew that Roseanne was a racist piece of garbage. And that's pretty much all I knew about her. But apparently, so I've been doing a little bit of research because Roseanne is also Jewish. Mm-hmm. And as I know with my own people, like some of us can have interesting histories, especially those of us who like go super hard in on the racism. Roseanne has been racist for a really long time, is the thing. Like she has been this kind of racist for a very, very, very long time. And people kind of brushed it under the rug or like didn't really care about it, mostly because a lot of her racism was aimed at Muslims and particularly Palestinians. And like Roseanne apparently used to have an anti-Zionist phase in like 2009. Like she was like really critical of the Israeli state. She like was critical of the government. She called like the 2009 massacres in Gaza and the bombings in Gaza an atrocity. She said that she hated Israel, and everybody was like, okay, Roseanne. And then in like around 2013, she re-switched to being like a right-wing fuckbag again.
Yeah.
And she like went really, really, really hard in on like the worst kinds of Islamophobia. Like just completely dehumanizing Muslims and Arabs at large. She like said horrible, horrible things. Said that that UCLA should be nuked when they passed a BDS resolution. Like she said some whack shit, and people didn't seem to notice because she was hating Muslims. And this was like around that time where Islamophobia was really reaching its peak before like that dip at the end of the Obama years, and it went back up again when Trump got elected. This was around like 2013, 2014, 2012, when like people super, super, super hated Muslims in like a way that hadn't been seen since 9/11.
Yeah.
And so she was hating Muslims right along with all these other white people, and really didn't like get noticed for it because she wasn't prominent. Her show had been off TV for a long time. Nobody was talking about a reboot.
And like you were saying, she was making these really racist public statements on Twitter for a while. But her fans were actually people who were agreeing with her politics.
Yeah, absolutely. She had her own. She very much had her own kind of echo chamber.
Yeah.
And folks are saying like, yeah, she's been hugely Islamophobic for a long time. She's a huge flip flopper.
She was a flip flopper. She came from white trash roots until the Trump rhetoric hit her dead on.
Yeah. And we actually had somebody on the show, our friend Liz, come and talk about white trash.
Yeah. You should definitely try. That was great. Liz does a great job, and she like grew up in what she says is kind of like white trash Appalachia. Yeah. Like she did a really great job of explaining that. So if you get a chance, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think Roseanne is a really interesting example because her comedy, right, has been very edgelordy. Like, you know, she's like a Jewish woman who posted these pictures of like herself in like a Hitler mustache.
Oh God, don't even get. She did this for a Jewish magazine too. She did like it was this atrocious photo shoot where she dressed up in a Hitler mustache and like a swastika armband and burnt cookies that were supposed to be like Jewish people in an oven and like ate them for this photo shoot. It was heinous.
Yeah.
But then when she was asked about it later, actually, a reporter asked her about the photo shoot. I was like, why did you burn these cookies? Like, were these supposed to be Jews? And she actually said, no, they were supposed to be Palestinians. She said that on the record to a reporter, that the cookies weren't supposed to be Jewish people, they were supposed to be Palestinians.
What?
And she was like doing this dressed up as a Nazi. Like, she's been off the rails for quite some time. And like engaged in some really creepily weird anti-Semitism for a Jewish person. Like,
which offended me as a non-Jew. Like, I wouldn't dress up as an overseer.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, dressing up as Hitler is something that should offend pretty much everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know,
it's one of those blanket things.
Yeah.
Like, dressing up as Hitler is bad.
Right, and for a second you're a little confused because you're like, all right, this is a Jewish artist that's dressing up as Hitler. Is there like something
was no satirical value to it. None at all.
So I think it's definitely, she's already had like this long history of racist tweets and anti-Palestinian like things to say, and she had that weird photo shoot. But I will say, at that point in time, like you said, she wasn't relevant. But when we did the destruction at Pride, one of our main organizers from the Trans Liberation Collective, Lasiah Wade, got into like a Twitter beef with her.
She got blocked by Roseanne on Twitter.
She got blocked by Roseanne, and like, I guess she had said something about our disruption at Pride because Roseanne is like queer, or she
is she?
Yeah.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't claim her.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Well, no, I think it's because she said something about Palestine.
It's
because Roseanne has like a long history of being on Twitter and like jumping on anybody who says the word Palestine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because we had people in the Trans Liberation, or not the. We had people in the Pride. Disruption.
Somebody had a Palestinian flag.
Flag. Right. So she like went in there and kind of said her piece. She ended up blocking a bunch of our organizers. So I already knew she was like pretty much
right, and she's been doing that for years at that point.
Yeah, and she'll get into like heated arguments with like leftists and then like block them. And
all my prominent like pro BDS friends who tweet all the time have been blocked by Roseanne at this point. It's ridiculous.
I feel like it's a rite of passage.
I only haven't been blocked by Roseanne because I keep forgetting that I have a Twitter.
Oh yeah, me too. And Twitter is just a terrible. It's a hell.
Twitter, I don't like Twitter. If you like Twitter, I'm sorry.
So here's the thing. So Roseanne got a reboot, right? And I really want to.
She should not have gotten that reboot.
A reboot she should have, never ever gotten.
It premiered to rave reviews.
Yeah, and you know people applauded it because it was a little black girl, so they had their like diversity quota.
And they had like a trans person or something.
Did they?
I heard that they had like a trans person on the show.
Because I wasn't gonna hype or give that like any clicks or anything.
Right.
So I like didn't watch it, but I knew there was like some quota diversity casting and people were generally really happy. And I also found out that Roseanne was unapologetically a Trump supporter in the show.
Yeah, they made her character a Trump supporter too.
Right.
Which from what I heard from people who enjoyed the show was not consistent with her character in the like. Also, they like brought people back to life from the dead, or like there were people who like died in the
Yeah, but they said that was like wacky. Non-canon. It was weird.
In the season finale, the person was dead. I guess the season finale isn't canon.
Yeah. So basically, it all turned out to be a dream. Whatever. But you know, so this happened. She had this show back, and it was like absolute fucking like.
How do you think it was gonna go? Roseanne the original was like white trash, poor folks who had shitty views.
But okay, so here's the thing, and I think people have said that a lot, right? It's like white trash, blah blah blah. But for me, this is such a cop out, right? Like to have this working class white family just be Trump supporters, right? Like in my opinion,
That's the easy way out.
Yeah, it is the fucking easy way out.
Especially nowadays.
And I feel like white working class people should feel like they deserve better depictions in the media. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, it's always that. And we created this narrative that, like, the white working class was the reason that, like, Trump got elected. And it's like, really, I mean, it was really so much more about the white people in power and the white people in wealth. And so, like, when we have that conversation, like, I don't give white people cookies that often, but I do want to create some leeway for white working class families, because it's like, they're not only Trump supporters. A lot of them were really anti-establishment and like, wanted Bernie, and like, you know, they didn't. You know?
A lot of shit happened. Yeah. But like, not all of them are like, and a lot of them, they're complicit in like the racist rhetoric if they don't oppose it.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that like pigeonholing them into that role doesn't do any good.
Yeah, and I think and the other thing too is that, like, you know, now that the show got canceled
after it had been renewed for a second season.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it got renewed like really early for a second season, and then they canceled it.
And you know, apparently, so this is what happened. So she went off in a series of very explicitly racist
extremely racist tweets.
Comparing basically this black woman, right, to an ape. And called her. She
called her like something if like the Muslim Brotherhood and like Planet of the Apes had a child or something horrible like that.
And then later on went to say she didn't know she was black, and then like but it all happened so quickly. So she made these tweets. Wanda Sykes, who was a producer on the show, I think.
She was like working on the show.
Yeah, was like, I'm out, I'm done, like quit right away. And then after she quit, a bunch of the cast members tweeted out basically saying, like, this is not what we believe in, like,
it was a tsunami.
Right. Yeah. And then, like, within 12 hours, Roseanne got a call, and they were like, they
canceled her.
So what's kind of hilarious to me, right, is that the reaction to all of this was like, oh my God, these poor cast members, they lost their jobs. And people have said this time and time again online, the show is called Roseanne, right?
Right.
And Roseanne is the main star. Roseanne...
These people knew who this woman was.
Yeah, even on the show, she's
ABC
a Trump supporter.
knew who this woman was.
Yeah.
They gave her this show anyway. All these people agreed to take their original roles. Like, and some of them didn't really, like, need to.
Yeah.
It's not like a lot of, like, you know, and I don't really know their financial situations, but I'm sure that some of these folks didn't exactly need the money.
I don't know.
They could have done something else.
I feel like... I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of weight pressure being put on the cast to come back together. Right. But I also feel like you knew what you were signing up for. I read this article called, like, gay women are the reason Roseanne got canceled. And it was because Wanda Sykes and the daughter on the show, Roseanne's daughter, is also gay in real life. And I'm like, but also gay women signed up to be on this show.
Right. And also Roseanne was the reason Roseanne got canceled. Yeah. She was a racist piece of shit.
Yeah, and I think at that point, right, the root of it is that racism was no longer profitable.
Right. And ABC made a very specific calculation. Yeah. To, like, they knew what this woman was about. They knew, like, she demanded that her character be a Trump supporter in the show. Like, they knew what this show was going to be about. They knew what Roseanne was about. All they had to do was look on Twitter and find out how racist this woman had been for, like, the last decade or so, consistently. And they gave her a show, and all these people took parts on it.
Yeah.
It's their fucking... Yeah. And, like, you know, like, I've seen a lot of people, like, boo-hooing about, like, the crew and whatever. And, yeah, that sucks for the crew. But also, there's a very, like... And I saw this rebuttal that I really liked. That was basically, if you're going to be making money from a show that's basically a show about a white supremacist... sorry if you get fired, like. Yeah,
but that's a chance you're willing to take, right? If you need the job, you need the job.
Right, but you know that you're making money working on a show that's about a white supremacist. Yeah. Like, if you get fired because the person was too much of a white supremacist in real life to keep their show, you took the job. And
someone who's actively, like, very vocally a white supremacist,
like,
too. It's not
openly.
Like Roseanne has, like, history and then it came to light. It was, like, very much actively on Twitter. It's so funny because she had this one tweet. She was like, I'm getting off of Twitter now. But then she was back like an hour later defending what happened and defending her position. And, you know, she blamed, she said, you know, I act really weird when I take Ambien. Ambien came out and was like,
racism is not a side effect of our medication.
Yeah, racism is not a side effect of our medication. Please keep us out of your mouth.
Which was a great drag by a pharmaceutical company.
So, you know, it's like, there's all these excuses coming in, and she keeps saying she's not making excuses. I really hope this is a fucking wake-up call for her. I doubt it. But I hope
That's not going to be a wake-up call for her. She's probably just going to get hired by the Trump administration, like, next week or something.
For, like, what
some sort of cultural thing.
I don't really, I mean...
Maybe she'll be a speechwriter.
I'd honestly be okay if she just, like, disappeared into nothingness.
Well, so would I. We know better.
But I think now the challenge is going to be, like, you know, now that these production companies know the consequence of hiring racists, are they going to keep doing this shit, right?
So that's the other thing, though. The production company didn't actually experience any consequences for hiring this woman. Like, people didn't stop watching ABC. They made a ton of money on they had to cancel the show, and they lost money on that probably. But, like, they were making a lot of money on this Roseanne. Like, they were profiting off of this. And they canceled her, and now they get to look like good people for canceling a thing they shouldn't have greenlighted in the first place. I'm not really sure if there's a lesson if there was a lesson learned by studios here. I think it was more of, like, they're going to have to pick more careful racists in the future.
Well, yes. And I think it's telling that, you know, ABC's one of the most profitable shows, I think, on their network is, like, Modern Family.
Oh, God, like Modern Family.
Actually, I really like Modern
Family. I think it's cute, but it's also, like, it's kind of trash.
It's a little white, but, like, it's a little white. And, like, it's a little white. It's a little white. But, you know, like, it was, like, funny and whimsical. It's, like, weird family dynamics.
It's cute.
But it's also kind of, like, you see that some of your most profitable shows are so different, right?
Like Diversity, the TV show, basically.
Yeah.
Like how they marketed Modern Family.
It's about queer families and interracial families.
It's fucking called Modern Family.
Yeah. So why is that not the template not that all modern,
right.
You know, it should definitely be more diverse. But I think there's actually another ABC show that's really popular. Which one? Is that ABC? This Is Us?
Is it? I don't know. I don't watch TV.
Oh, okay. I don't know. But, you know, like, you see really popular shows.
There's, like, a lot of, like, Diversity, the TV show right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of, Diversity.
Starbucks Training, the TV show.
Wait, and I want to give a shout out to Open TV because they're a free open platform for all kinds of, like,
producing amazing content.
Yeah, they were one of the production platforms for, they don't like to be called a production company. They're just a platform. They're a production platform for Brown Girls, which got picked up by HBO. This is an amazing show. Brujos is on there. Amazing show as well. It's about almost all Latinx cast of witches.
Seeds on there? Is Seeds on there?
Seeds. Yes.
Yeah.
Seeds. One of our friends was one of the main characters in Seeds, which was amazing, and it was, like, really short, but it was so funny.
It's like a web series, but it's, like, it's good. So it's short, but it's really good.
Yeah, and the new show that they have coming out, The Tea, which is going to be amazing. I've, like, done a feature.
Very excited.
Yeah, I've done a feature on them, and the creators are just amazing Chicago-based artists, and so that's going to be around.
There's a lot of good Chicago shit on this platform.
Queer, yeah. So, I mean, if you're looking for diversity, if you're looking for, like, a narrative that actually...
ABC picked these shows up.
Yeah, ABC should pick some of these actually really great shows up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, I don't know. So I'm really interested to see what they're going to do next.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be trash. I think another really interesting thing about this whole, like, the reason that Roseanne got fired, and I haven't seen a lot of talk about this, but, like, I thought it was very interesting that the act of racism that got Roseanne fired, and, like, specifically the act of anti-blackness that got Roseanne fired, because she'd been anti-black for, like, so many people for a really long time. Like, this wasn't new for Roseanne. Like, shitting on black women wasn't new.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Was that she criticized somebody who was formerly in the Obama administration. Mm-hmm. And, like, that was what did it for people. Not all the times she's, like, been horrible to black women before, not all the times that she's been horrible to trans. She was a TERF, too, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, not all the times she's been horrible to trans women, not all the times she's been horrible to Palestinians and Muslims and Arabs at large. Like, she'd been horrible to so many people for a very long time. And then when she criticized somebody who was, like, in a prominent position, then her racism had consequences.
Right. And also...
previously, her racism got her a TV show.
Right. But also, she made...
Brujas is coming to Stars after Latinx Wishes in Chicago. Brujas is different. Is different, though.
Brujos is... And actually, if you ask the creator, Ricardo Gamboa...
Brujas may have been ripped off.
Yeah, they will claim that people are inspired by their work. So, yeah, brujos and brujas are different.
Despite sounding extremely similar.
Yeah, I mean, it just means witch,
right.
witches, which male and female, which is it's same but different. But definitely check both out.
Yeah, for sure, check both out. Yeah.
But back to the Roseanne point, I want to say not only did she make a really anti-black joke about, or not even a joke, just a statement.
Yeah, just like
about someone in a prominent position, but then a black woman in a prominent position took like a stand, right? And that was Wanda Sykes being like, "I'm fucking out of this shit."
Right.
So it had to have been like the perfect balance of both of those things, of people.
Like important people experiencing racism and important people deciding that they had enough of it. Because before, like, Wanda Sykes had to have known that she did all this other shit too, and she still signed on to the show.
Yeah, I think Wanda Sykes
people dragged her for that too.
Yeah, I think, and in Wanda Sykes' defense, like, she gets hired onto a bunch of things as like
as the diversity, as like the token gay black woman, and like that's not necessarily her fault. Like, she got to make her money.
Yeah, and and I feel like in the industry, like that. Those roles are always so limited for especially black women and behind the scenes and a production level. Like that's
no fault to Wanda Sykes at all.
Yeah. So my main beef is like, with NBC, with the cast.
ABC.
ABC.
Same thing.
But even
they'll all be owned by Comcast eventually.
Yeah, but I think you're right, and I think like you were saying earlier, like so much of a racism.
Disney own ABC? Doesn't Disney own ABC?
Disney owns everything.
When Comcast owns Disney, doesn't it?
No, I thought Disney owned. Or wait, no, you're right. Maybe, yeah.
So they're all owned by the same people anyway.
They're all intertwined in some way, but yeah,
like the media controls the media.
But I do want to say to your point about Roseanne having said really anti-Palestinian things and being a super Zionist, like these are all red flags. Like these are all things we should have seen.
We knew.
Yeah, and we're already like in place and happening. So for it to get to the point where it's like explicitly anti-black, like. Like that was a long time coming, along with so many of other fucked up things. And we should be conscious of that. We should be conscious of the people that are Zionists and saying really fucked up things about Palestinians, especially right now.
Right. And we shouldn't be shocked when then they pivot to anti-blackness because like Zionism is inherently anti-black.
Yeah. So that's what we have to say about that.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see where the Roseanne the trash bag ends up next. Like,
I hope she goes nowhere.
I hope she goes. She'll always have Twitter.
So tired of her.
I wonder if she's gonna get banned from Twitter.
I hope.
Because like people have been banned for Twitter for saying similar things. Like Milo Yiannopoulos got banned from Twitter, didn't he?
That was a great.
Right.
I thought that white supremacist was Richard Spencer.
No, Richard Spencer I don't think was. Well, he might have been. There was like this Nazi who was running for Congress in Wisconsin who got banned from Twitter. Like people have been banned for Twitter for saying shit like that. Like, come on, Twitter, step up.
Twitter's a fucking hellhole. Anytime I've used Twitter and I've posted something that people slightly disagree with,
they get mean.
They're really hostile.
They get really mean.
Yeah, and like it's weird because when the Kendrick Lamar thing happened with the white girl that went on stage to say the N-word, I had written something like, "Oh, if Cardi B can censor her own self when she goes on live television, like every other non-black person can censor themselves during this time." And people were mad. Like people were showing their whole ass. They were like, "What?" And I like at one point I was like, "You guys are angrily online wasting your time justifying your need to say the N-word." Like
that's what Twitter. I feel like about 40% of Twitter is just people justifying their use of the N-word.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's so ugly. I was like, how? Like I don't even know if I can explain why this is wrong. Like why is this not okay? But that's like a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to add anything before we wrap up?
I don't know. I mean, I think Starbucks is garbage. Roseanne is garbage. The whole world is garbage. Twitter's garbage. Kanye's garbage.
I swear to God, if y'all are out here bumping to Kanye's new album, I'm going to take next TacoBagel episode to create a collective list.
We'll write a 5-minute shame list.
Yes, I cannot believe some of you. Y'all are hypocrites. Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. But whatever.
It's 1/3 racist and 1/3 Russian bots for Twitter.
Yeah. So yeah, we will be tuning in next time.
Yes.
Let you guys know. This was just kind of impromptu, but if you guys have any topics you feel like we should cover, would like us to cover. And
if you want to give your own thoughts on the Starbucks training, remember the entire thing is online, comment and all, on starbuckschannel.com/the3rd path or what was it? It was like some weird shit.
We will definitely find it.
I said it like 6 times at the beginning of the video and now I can't remember.
And leave it in the links for you as well. Yeah, so yeah, we'll see you guys next time. If we don't get a chance to go live before then, be sure to go out to Chicago Dyke March.
Yes, come to Chicago Dyke March. It is in Little Village on June 23rd. We are big fans of Dyke March here at TacoBagel. We love Dyke March.
Yeah.
They really need support. They're an amazing community organization, an amazing community project that deserves every ounce of love and then a little bit extra.
Yeah.
They're some of the best folks in Chicago doing some of the best work in Chicago. And for any of you who are queer or trans and live here or live in a place where Chicago is accessible to you, come out to Little Village on June 23rd and come be in Dyke March.
Yeah, and then the weekend after, we have the Trans Beach Party.
Yes!
Yay! So we will post more links to events of that sort, and then we will see you guys next time.
Yeah. Bye!
Bye!